Hello again, Multiverse. This is Jeff Mack, Dark Lord, and I am here to talk about another piece from the Evil Overlord list. This is only my second ever Evil Overlord video, or at least my second only video referring to the Evil Overlord list. So I'm still getting into the swing of things, but everything's going to be fine today because I'm wearing a hat. For those of you who don't know, the Evil Overlord list, and I'm using Peter Ansbach. Ansbach? I will never find out, possibly. Peter Ansbach's version is a list of things that your general autocratic, villainous sci-fi fantasy monster, such as myself, should never do, and I am debunking it for reasons of my own. The other day I did number 1. There are 100 on that list. I'm attempting not to look at the numbers in advance, so I don't know what number 2 is. I've probably read the list a few times, and I might have given some of this thought, but there will be at least some, I hope, which surprise me, and that's part of why I'm doing this in one take, wherever possible. Alright. So number 1 was, my Legions of Terror will have helmets with clear plexiglass visors, not face-concealing ones, and I discussed that at some length. Number 2 is, my ventilation ducts will be too small to crawl through. Alright, let's address that one. So the idea here is, of course, that the plucky and or noble adventurers often choose your ventilation ducts. They're usually big enough for people to climb into, and people can crawl through them in one way or another and get to you. This actually seems a little extra special arbitrary. It's a bit of a pity it's the second one, in fact, but I am going through this in order regardless of what order it is, or at least that's the goal so far. It feels to me like this is a conceptual protection, but hasn't necessarily been cleared with any HVAC professionals. I don't know what size air ducts are needed for what purposes or why. It's not one of my areas of specialty. You know, as Thomas Edison said, if I want information, I'll just torture a dozen engineers. I don't know at all how well that works, how much you need those in, say, an ancient castle 2,000 years ago on an alternative Earth versus spaceship, I guess a space fortress versus any other place you might have your lair. The thing is, really, you cannot make your entire lair completely human-proof unless you're making it extremely inconvenient for humans. You might, if you are, say, part of some alien species or served primarily by some sort of alien and or non-human species, possibly make it out of dimensions that are uncomfortable for humans, but that's probably going to be a form follows function thing anyway. I mean, if your guards are mostly 9-foot tall tripedal creatures with giant wings, you're not going to make a whole bunch of rooms with 6.5-foot ceilings if you intend your guards to go through those rooms, say, to get from one place to another. It doesn't make sense. There's so many challenges with the idea that you might change a core part of your design because other people might use it against you. The core fact here is, well, I'll get to that in 1 second. But in general, I know that there will be a number of rules that are specific to particular ideas, and the larger principle here is, if there is anything that would help someone easily circumvent your protections, you should stop it from being circumvented. But that's a very hindsight-oriented argument. It's like, once you figured out that you have a weakness because someone else has exploited that weakness, yes, stop having the weakness. But you can't go forward in time to know that you have that weakness. If you were aware that you had air ducts, that somehow, with an amount of effort that would be reasonable to expect from, say, someone as determined as your enemies might be, then yeah, if you have that situation, it's a good idea to try to protect everything you can think of that might be an avenue to you. But do you want to do that at the expense of having a poorly heated or cooled palace, say? One with poor air circulation? Because that will have potential effects upon your health and the health of all those within. It seems silly if, and this is hypothetical again, I'm not an HVAC professional either, but it would be a little ridiculous to have poor heating and air circulation just because somebody might get through. Why not have bars at the end of the vents? Why not have guards on the vents? Why not have cameras on the vents? Or, demons, monsters, vent patrolling Pac-Men. Yes, of course the plural of Pac-Men is Pac-Men. Why wouldn't it be? Is it Pac-Mans? I can't bring myself to say that. Pax-Man? No, it sounds like someone who brings sort of the Pax Transylvania. Okay, if I were doing cuts, I would probably have cut that piece. But now you get to see it in all of its weird circulatory glory. What I really wanted to get to was this point. You cannot stop every possible way of people potentially attacking you. People will, if you have decent opponents, be resourceful. Or they could have other advantages. They could be weak and unwise, but vast in number. They could be very small in number, but really good at what they do. They could be extremely determined. They could be not necessarily heroes even, could be your own chief of staff or grand vizier. Could be any direction. You cannot spend your life trying to anticipate every possible thing and then trade off everything for your potential safety. It just doesn't work that way. And that is a basic of entrepreneurship. In fact, that would be a basic of economics, and that's true under just about any successful economic system, that you need to take risks. You cannot simply avoid every possible risk. You could, but it's challenging. It's not usually going to bring you optimum results. At best, you will have some sort of mediocre results, and at worst, a deep aversion to risk stops you from changing things that might need to be changed, and keeps you standing still, might even push you backwards because you're just focusing on avoiding all possible risk, which is just not a good idea if you are some sort of evil overlord. And I guess if you're an evil overlord and you're very content with your life, you might not try to expand. I mean, it's not that expansion is always the way to go, but you might try to innovate. You might try to experiment. If you just stay there and put an increasing number of protections on hypothetical dangers, you will create actual dangers. Some of your attempts at solving potential problems might be worse than the problem itself. And of course, if you are a powerful monster and you spend your life acting as though you will have no concerns other than fearing for that life, other people will begin to assume that you have really good reason to fear for your life, and they will decide that it is easily taken from you, at which point you will either have to prove that it is not by destroying them, which may not be possible depending on the circumstances, especially if they're very determined and you are very distracted, as might happen if you are worried about nothing but avoiding, for example, heroes crawling through the ducts or teenage mutant ninja iguanas coming through your sewers or whatever else might happen. They might take you out, and then, well, they might take you out because you've put so much effort into trying to prevent every possible harm, as opposed to trying to build a better position, have a happier populace less likely to overthrow you, destroy your enemies from afar, increase your powers, whether they be through expanding your empire or expanding your personal knowledge of secrets we were not meant to know, whatever it is. Those things also have their risks. You can fail at those things. You can fail disastrously, especially, as I might have detailed in a book or two, at that last one. But it's going to be, I would argue, a much better investment to create new things and improve than to go around looking at everything that exists, looking at everything around you and saying, how could this destroy me? It's better to look at the world and say, how could I destroy it? And that's my Evil Overlord thought for you. My name is Jeff Mack. You can follow me on Twitter at DarkLordJournal. You can find my writing work at Jeff Mack Writes, MACHJEFFMACHWRITES.com, and you should go to Evil Expo. I will talk to you all later.